Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A very warm welcome to this Monday, 3rd November 2025 morning Srimad-Bhagavatam discussion. Today we are going to read from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 3, entitled The Status Quo, Chapter 12, Creation of the Kumaras and Others, Text 39. Before we discuss on this verse, let's sing Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Vijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Radhe, Jai Nitai Sachinandana Gaurari, Jai Nitai Sachinandana Gaurahari, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol. जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य श्रोत्र सदस्य श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस श्री श्री भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, नमाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर श्री वासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय, श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, मथुरा धाम की जय, जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, सामवेद भक्तवृंद की जय. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyata Deshatarine. Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Krishne Matirastu. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 12, Text 39. Itihasa Puranani Panchamam Vedamishvaraha Sarvebhya eva Vaktrebhya Sasraje सर्वदर्शनः इतिहास पुराणानि पंचमं वेदमीश्वरः सर्वेभ्य एव वक्त्रेभ्यः ससृजे सर्वदर्शनः इतिहास पुराणानि पंचमं वेदमीश्वरः सर्वेभ्य एव वक्त्रेभ्यः ससृजे सर्वदर्शनः. Word by word. Itihasa, histories. Puranani, the Puranas, supplementary Vedas. Panchamam, the fifth. Vedam, the Vedic literature. Ishvaraha, the Lord. Sarvebhyaha, altogether. Eva, certainly. Vaktrebhyaha, from the mouths. Sasraje, created. Sarva, all around. Darshanaha, one who can see all time. Translation. Then he created the fifth Veda, the Puranas and the histories, from all his mouths, since he could see all the past, present and future. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. There are histories of particular countries and nations and of the world, but the Puranas are the histories of the universe, not only in 1 millennium, but in many kalpas. Brahma has knowledge of those historical facts, and therefore all the Puranas are histories. As originally composed by Brahma, they are part of the Vedas and are called the fifth Veda. Before we discuss on this verse, let us offer some prayers. Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namashreshtam Manamapi Shachiputram Matra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Murupurim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Adadandastranam Dante Idam Yacha Punaha Punaha Shriman Rupa Padam Hojam Dhulisyam Janma Janmani He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the verse is Srimad-Bhagavatam Canto 3 Chapter 12 Text 9. Itihasa Puranani Panchamam Vedamishvaraha Sarvebhya eva vaktrebhyah sasraje sarvadarshanaha. Then he created the fifth Veda, the Puranas and the histories, from all his mouths, since he could see all the past, present and future. So here in this particular verse, we are understanding how Brahmaji has been creating different aspects of existence. We have seen in different sessions that we have done before how from various parts of Brahmaji's body different aspects were created, and different types of living entities also got created. The whole material existence was brought into creation, the process of creation, through the medium of Brahmaji. So therefore, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muhyanti Yat Suraya. So it is mentioned in Srimad-Bhagavatam, the first verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Tene Brahma Hrida Ya Adikavaye. So Adikavi is Brahmaji. And the Brahma word in that particular verse indicates the transcendental knowledge. So the transcendental knowledge went into the heart of Hrida. Tene Brahma Hrida Ya Adikavaye. So it went into the heart of Brahmaji. So the transmission of knowledge was taking place without the actual speaking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is what is Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pashyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Damaham Bhajami. So this is the wonderful nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Yaseka Nishwasita Kala Mathavalambya Chivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanatha Vishnur Mahan Saihayasya Kala Vishesho Govindam Adi Purusham Damaham Bhajami. Mahavishnu, just by his breathing from his pores, the whole universe is coming into existence. And when he inhales, everything is going in. This is that inconceivable creation of this material existence. Swabhaviki Jnana Balak Kriyacha. This is the transcendental position that all the activities are being performed naturally. It is not that the Supreme Personality of Godhead needs to do some hard endeavor to perform any kind of activity. So this is where when we were stating the first verse, Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pashyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti. So the different, so Sa Aikshata, it is mentioned in the Vedas that the Lord just glanced and then he brought in life into the different, so the material existence is coming through the exhalation of Mahavishnu, and then just the glancing is causing all the living entities to become alive in that sense. So this is that transcendental position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. Vishnur Mahansa Ihayasya Kala Vishesha. It is mentioned that the Mahavishnu, from whom the whole creation is, so that is Karano Lakshaya Vishnu, Garbho Lakshaya Vishnu and Kshiro Lakshaya Vishnu. These are the Purusha avatars of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So from these Purusha avatars, the whole creation is coming into existence and the creation is being maintained as well. For example, the Karano Lakshaya Vishnu is the Karana. Karana is the cause. So this is what Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. This is mentioned in the Brahma Samhita in the beginning, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parama, the Supreme, Ishvara, the controller, personality, is Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Sri Krishna. Sachidananda Vigraha. And he is an embodiment of eternal existence, eternal consciousness and eternal bliss. Sachidananda. Vigraha. His Vigraha is his transcendental form. That is, so this is the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna's form. Anadir Adir Govinda. He himself does not have any beginning, Anadi, but he is Adi of everything. He is the beginning of everything. Govinda. And he is the person who gives pleasure to the mind and to the cows. Go. So we got this Go Dasa and Go Swami. The Go Swami are the people who have controlled their mind. And how is the mind controlled? Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mame vaishyasi yuktva atmanam matparayana. Mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. As Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, that when the mind is given to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What do we mean by mind given? That is, the mind is constantly remembering the pastimes of the Lord. Janma karmam cha me divyam. Evam yoveti tatvata. Tyaktva deham punarjanmam naiti mameti so Arjuna. As Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, when one knows in truth, experientially, that Krishna's janma, his birth and karma, his activities are divya, are divine, then tyaktva deham punarjanmam naiti. After giving up this body, there is no material body again that person is going to get. Then what happens to such a person? Mameti so Arjuna. Such a person comes back to me. And so this is that wonderful nature of engaging in remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yena tena prakarena mana Krishna niveshayet. Somewhere or the other, make the mind fixed on Krishna. Sarve vidhi nishedasyo retayor eva kinkara. All the other rules and regulations are subservient to this main rule. And the main rule is, somewhere or the other, you have to fix the mind on Krishna. So when these verses, like for example the verse that we are discussing now, itihasa puranani, so what are the itihasas and what are the Puranas? We can try and understand. So itihasa means the history. The history, generally the histories are like Ramayana and Mahabharata. So they are giving us the story of the pure devotees of Krishna and Krishna himself. Krishne Swadhamopagate. And then we have got the Puranas, like Bhagavata Purana, what we are discussing now. Krishne Swadhamopagate Dharma Jnana Divisaha Kalau Nashta Drisham Mesha Puranarko Dhunodita. It is mentioned in Srimad-Bhagavatam that when Krishna personally went back home, back to Godhead, after performing his divine leelas, after performing his divine pastimes, the Supreme Personality of Godhead went back home, back to Godhead, his own abode. Krishna Swadham Upagate. Upagata. Upagata means when he went back. Dharma Jnana Dibesa. So when he went back, along with him, Dharma and Jnana also went. Religiosity and the transcendental knowledge. Then immediately there is the start of Kali Yuga. Kalau Nashta. Drusham Mesha. Then the Kali Yuga, everyone started seeing that the Kali Yuga has now started. When Krishna went back, that was the end of the Dwapara Yuga and the beginning of the Kali Yuga. The third Yuga ended and the fourth Yuga started. This is what Krite Yadhyayato Vishnum Tretayam Yajito Makai Dwapare Paricharyayam Kalau Tad Harikirtanat. So this is the dharma of each age. So in the Krita Yuga or the Satya Yuga, there was the dharma. The main activity was to meditate on Lord Vishnu. And this meditation could occur for hundreds of thousands of years, because the lifespan was thousands and thousands of years. So this was the Satya Yuga, when everything was conducive for that meditation for huge number of years, hundreds of years, thousands. Tretayam Yajito Makai. In the Treta Yuga, which is the second Yuga, it was the sacrifices, the fire sacrifices. That was a major dharma for that age. Dwapare Paricharyayam. In the Dwapara Yuga, which is the Yuga in which Sri Krishna personally appeared, that is Paricharyayam. That was the deity worship. That was a major dharma of that age. Kalau Tat Harikirtanat. And similarly in the Kali Yuga, the dharma, the major activity is Harikirtan. Kirtaniya Sadahari. Trinadapi Sunichena Taroriva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. So how does one can be in that state of existence where one can constantly engage in the Hari Kirtan, constantly engage in chanting the holy names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The first qualification is Trunadapi Sumichena. One is more tolerant than a blade of grass. And that also shows humility. It's mainly the humility aspect that is portrayed by Truna. So that Truna is that blade of grass. And it is resilient as well at the same time. It is not only humble, but it is resilient. Because even though it is being trampled on, it comes up. But does not mean that one is not standing up for what dharma one has to stand up for. For example, the best case is that of Arjuna. Arjuna wanted to give up everything and become a mendicant because he did not want to go ahead and fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. We say that karpanya dosho apahata svabhava prichhami tvam dharma sammoda cheta yeshreyasyam nishchitam bruhitam me shishyasteham sadhi mam tvam prapannam. And so initially Arjuna gives lots and lots of arguments for not fighting in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsava mamaka pandavaschaiva kim akurvata sanjaya. So this was said by Dhritarashtra, the first verse in Srimad-Bhagavatam. Srimad-Bhagavatam is part of Mahabharata, and Mahabharata is Itihasa. So we can see here that Sasraje Sarva Darshana. If you look at the last word of this last couple of words of this verse, Sasraje is created. Sarva Darshana means, as it is translated by Srila Prabhupada and in the purport, he is knowing the past, present and future. Like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedaham samatitani vartamani cha arjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that he personally knows past, present and future. Because the timeline is something that the Lord himself has created. Kalosmi, lokakshaya krit. So the time aspect itself, the time, space, and the whole conditioning that is existing in this material existence is the creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is the spiritual world. Nimeshardhakyo va brajati nahi yatrapi samaya. So it is mentioned in the Brahma Samhita. It is mentioned that the spiritual world, there is constantly katha ganam natyam gamanam api vamshi priya sakhi. Katha ganam. So every talk is like a song. Katha ganam natyam gamanam api. Gamana is the walking. Is like a natyam. It's like a drama and dance. Vamshi priya sakhi. And the best friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the flute. It is a very beautiful analogy of the flute that is given in the scriptures, that when the holes are properly made, then the flute is giving the sound that it needs to give. So that what is that hole? They are signifying that one is ready to surrender onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is what Krishna says. This Mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite Devi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. As Krishna says that this divine energy of mine is extremely difficult to overcome. And it is Krishna's energy. So Krishna's energy is as powerful as Krishna. And the only person who can help us to overcome that as powerful energy as Krishna is Krishna himself. And that is why Krishna says, Mameva ye prapadyante. As someone who certainly surrenders unto me, Mayam etam tarantite. The Lord personally, Tesha maham samruddharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha mai aveshita chetasam. So this is Mayeva mana adhastva mai buddhim niveshaya nivasashyasya mayeva ata urdhvam na samshaya. Krishna says there is no doubt that when the mind is fixed on the Lord, Mayeva mana adhastva, and the intelligence is also fixed on the Lord, May buddhi niveshaya nivasashyasya mayeva. When that fixed mind and intelligence is totally absorbed in the Lord, ata urdhvam na samshaya. Then one comes to the Lord and goes back to the Lord. Bhaktya to ananya shakya amevo vidho arjuna gyatum drushtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita that when that devotional service is ananya shakya, ananya is constant, without any break. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyam. Yogakshema, yoga, that is that connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Bhakti Yoga. Kshema is sometimes it can get dissipated because of one's existence in this material world. Just like there is friction. And friction is actually in a way good. Like for example, if one is driving the car, if there was no friction, the speed will not be controlled properly. So friction helps to control the speed. So for example, what is brake doing when the car is moving? The brake is creating that friction so that if one needs to stop, one can stop. Similarly, even while in movement, there is friction in the surface. That friction is helping to control the movement of the car. Exactly the same way, in the material existence, there is the friction of being in the material world. And what is this friction? It is this constant thinking that this bodily existence is the only existence. That is what is ajnana. It is the this ajnana or ignorance is the cause of our whole. This is what is mana shashtani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. So what is ajnana? Ajnana means that I am considering something that is as a tool as myself. So Brahman sarva bhutani yantra rodhani maya. So we are having a tool in the form of the mind and the body. And this tool has got two different aspects, the gross aspect and the subtle aspect. So that's why Krishna says, Nimitta matram bhava savyasachi, maya vaitehi nihitam purvameva, tasmatvam yuddhasva yasho labhasva, bhungshva shatrum rajyam samridham. So bhungtva rajyam samridham, maya vaitehi vitanhi purvameva nimitta matram bhava savyasachin. So Krishna mentions to Arjuna that everything has already been divinely ordained. So what does that mean? It does not mean that one does not do what one needs to do. Because if one does that, then one is using this instrument in the best possible way. But if this is what is niyatam karma karmatvam sharira yatrapi chate na prasiddhyet akarmana. So there is another verse. So basically what that verse is saying is that even for the maintenance of the body, one has to engage in some kind of work. So therefore, work which is directed yagyartha karmana anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that all the activities have to be performed as an offering of love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then there is no karma bandhana. The karma bandhana is the reason why there is punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. That constantly one is taking birth and constantly one is dying, because the activities that are being performed are performed with the intention of getting something back in return in the material existence. But when the activities are performed as an offering of love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is yagyartha karmana. Yagyartha karmana anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. So this is why there is this there's a particular verse where Krishna says that sanyasastu mahabaho dukkham aptum ayogata yoga yukta munir brahma achirinadi gacchati. And so when one is renouncing everything, but one is not engaging oneself in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it is dukkham apnoti. Kleshu adhikarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakto hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhiravapyate. So when one is meditating on the impersonal Brahman, Krishna actually mentions in that particular verse that is klesha adhikaras. There is a lot of difficulty one is engaged in. Avyakta sakta chetasam. One is attached to the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when one is attached like that, the situation is unfortunately quite difficult situation. Why? Avyakto hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhiravapyate. Because in the embodied state of existence, the whole concept of impersonal meditation is not congruent. It is like it is one of, in a sense, there is a contradiction there. There is a conundrum there in terms of one meditating on impersonal Brahman, when actually in the current situation one knows and one sees that there is body. And the understanding of Vaishnava philosophy is that there is the amsha is always an amsha. And the part and parcel is always a part and parcel. Mamaiva amsha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Eternally. The part is not whole. The part is always a part. But the part is a significant portion of the whole. The part is completing the whole in one sense. So therefore, it is so much important that the part reunites with the whole. Because the whole, even though the Purnamadha, Purnamudam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vashishyate. This is the invocation mantra of Sri Ishopanishad, where it is said that Purnasya, so Purnamadam, Purnamida. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is full, and because we are part and parcels of Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are full. So in that sense, the Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. From the complete whole, other complete wholes are emanating. Purnasya Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. If you take complete out of the complete, what is left is complete. So this is this spiritual existence. So in that sense, but the realization of the completeness will happen only in yoga. When one, through the mind, through the intelligence, one can understand that that link is always established. The link of the part with the whole is never taken away. It is always in existence. So this is what, when we hear the itihasa and Puranas, when we hear this Ramayana and Mahabharata, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is coming, like the Dashavatara, in the Dashavatara, Sri Rama's Avatara is the 7th Avatara. And there are other avatars, Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narsimha. Then we have Vamana, Parashurama, Rama, Balrama, and then Buddha and Kalki. And so you have got this 10 avatars, and Ramayana is the description of Sri Rama's pastimes. And so when these itihasas are, as it is said here, Sarva Darshana. So the importance of all these itihasas and Puranas is that they are all based on stories. And stories is something that everyone is naturally attracted to. So Vedas, the Rig, Sama, Yajur and Atharva, the 4 Vedas, they are in the form of prose and some of the poetries. That is called Shruti. Shruti is hearing. So earlier these Vedas were transmitted through the medium of oral reception only. Later we had these different ways of noting it down. And the noting down was needed as well, because as time progressed, that subtlety of remembering everything started to get deteriorated, because we became more gross and gross as the ages passed. Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga, and this is a Kali Yuga. Kalir dosha nidhe rajan. Yasti eko mahadgunan kirtanadeva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. As it is mentioned by Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. So in this Kali, age of Kali, it is said that it is unfortunately full of impurities. It is called Nidhi. Dosha Nidhi. Nidhi is like a great treasure. But this treasure is unfortunately of doshas, of all unwanted things. Anartha upasamam sakshat bhakti yoga adokshaje lokasya janata vidvams chakre satvata samhitam. It is mentioned in Srimad-Bhagavatam. This is why, and this is Vedaisya sarvai rahamaya vedyo vedanta krad vedanta vedeva cha. So through the medium of Vyasadeva, this is, so Brahmaji is doing the creation of these Vedas through the medium of Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva is called the literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. So there is, everything is coming from Krishna in that sense, directly or indirectly. There is nothing that does not exist without the relationship with Krishna. There is either indirect or direct relationship. That is why we have got this Bhumir apanala vayu khammana buddhireva chahankaram itiyam me bhinna prakritir ashtadha. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that earth, water, fire, air, space, and then mind, intelligence and false ego are my 8 separated energies, Krishna says. And then apareyam itastonyam vidhime prakritim param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharete jagat. Krishna says then there is another superior energy. So this is separated inferior energies, earth, water, fire, air, space, mind, intelligence, false ego, the 8. And then Krishna says there is a superior energy which is Jiva Bhuta, the living entities. Mahabaho is addressing Arjuna as the mighty armed Arjuna. Yayedam dharate jagat. So they are actually responsible for the coexistence within the material world. The living entities. So when the living entities, this is what is called Jiva Jivasya Jivanam. Apadani Chatushpadam. So it is mentioned in the scriptures that one living entity is a food for another living entity. Apadani Chatushpadam. For example, the grass and other types of vegetation is the food for cows, for example. So this continuous subsisting on the one living entity subsisting on another living entity is the way the existence has been designed. That is the creation. So this is the Jiva Bhuta. The Jiva Bhuta are the living entities. The living entities are the combination of Antaranga Shakti and Bahiranga Shakti. And so that is the internal potency of the Lord and the external potency. And therefore they are called tatastha Shakti. So this is what Krishnasya tatastha Shakti Bheda Bheda Prakash. This is what it is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Jivera Swarupaya Krishnera Nityadas. And that the actual constitutional position of all the living entities is that they are an eternal part and parcel of Krishna. So what does it mean by being an eternal part and parcel of Krishna? That means that the real bliss comes from that association with Krishna. And unfortunately, in the material existence, somehow or other, the nature of this material existence is such that one is always thinking that the existence can subsist without that relationship with the Lord. And that is the nature of this material existence, and that's what we were calling about the friction. That is the ajnana. That's why lokasya janata vidvams chakre satvata samhitam. What we were discussing about that particular verse, anartha upasamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje. So this, for example, the creation of the Puranas. The Puranas is a next word that is mentioned in this particular verse. The first is itihasa. We were discussing about Ramayana and Mahabharata, and then the actual existence of Srimad-Bhagavatam within Mahabharata, Srimad-Bhagavad-Gita, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead is personally speaking. And by speaking to Arjuna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is giving that message to all the living entities. And this is what Srila Prabhupada mentions in his purports as well, that the situation that started the whole situation in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Arjuna was seemingly in a state of despondence, that whole situation is actually coming under the divine potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is why Krishna says, Naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samavrita mudhoyam nabhijanati mamebhya paramaveyam. That when the internal energy of the Lord, when the Lord is personally present, the internal energy is acting. That it is through the medium of internal energy that all the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is executed. That is Antaranga Shakti. This is where the pure devotional service exists. It is within the Yogamaya potency. And then there is the Mahamaya potency, which is the external energy of the Lord, and the whole material world is existing under the Mahamaya potency. So when this is what is Mahatmanastu Mampartham Daivim Prakritim Ashrita Bhajantananya Manaso Gyatva Bhutadim Abhyaya. So the Mahatma, the great soul, is under the protection of the divine energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Daivi Yesha Gunamai. So when one is, so the Mahamaya becomes Yogamaya when one surrenders onto Mahamaya. But if one is not to Mahamaya directly, or Mahamaya Krishna, so if one surrenders onto Krishna, because surrendering onto Krishna means that Mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. Krishna says that I help that person to cross over this seemingly insurmountable situation where one is constantly taking birth and constantly dying. So the same potency, one is Gunamayi and one is Daivi. Daivi Hesha Gunamayi. So the Daivi potency, or the potency which is divine, is the Yogamaya. But when there is Gunamayi, when there is Tribhir Gunamair Bhaver Ebhi Sarvamidam Jagat Mohitam Nabhi Janati Mamebhya Paramaveyam. So when one is under the influence of the three modes of material nature, then that is Mahamaya. So even though that is Daivi, but the Daivi, the divine energy, is producing the three modes of material nature. and the living entities who are conditioned to get entangled in the three modes of material nature are under the control of Mahamaya. But when the living entity surrenders onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they come under the purview of Yoga Maya. So this is what is Mahatmana Sumam Bhartam Devim Prakritim Ashrita Bhajan Tananya Manaso Gyata Bhutadim Avyayam. What are the qualities of Mahatma? They are Ananya. They are constantly bhajanta, constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, constantly Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnum, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. As it is mentioned by Prahlad Maharaj, iti. So this is Navavidha Bhakti. So the 9 kinds of devotional service, starting from hearing, Shravanam. So when there is hearing, there is Kirtanam. One can talk about the Lord. When one constantly hears about the Lord, one can talk about the Lord. When Shravanam and Kirtanam, then Smaranam. One remembers the Lord. Padasevanam, one gives the service to the lotus feet of the Lord. Archanam, Vandanam. So one is offering flowers, one is offering the prayers to the Lord. Dasyam, one is becoming the servant of the Lord. Sakyam, one is becoming the friend of the Lord. And Atma Nivedanam. Atma Nivedanam is complete, total surrender onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the situation of Bali Maharaj's, epitomizes the Padas, Atma Nivedanam, the total 100% surrender onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even his Guru, Shukracharya, said that you should not give anything to this dwarf Brahmana, who is actually Vishnu disguised as a dwarf Brahmana, Vamana avatar. But Bali Maharaj, because he was the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, he had that inclination to render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that mood of service, he was ready to give up everything for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the so it does not mean that like the service can be done even while remaining in what one is doing. One does not need to renounce anything. This is what is there is a particular verse in Srimad-Bhagavatam, Jnane prayase udapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukharitam bhavadiya vartam sthane sthita shrutigata tanuvan manobhir ye prayase ajita jitopi asitai strilokyam. Very beautiful verse in Srimad-Bhagavatam. It says that if one is trying to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead through jnana, udapasya, it is not possible. Through the knowledge, understanding the Lord is not possible. Because knowledge is based on logic. And the Lord is bhavagrahi janardana. He is under the control of the emotions, of the surrender of the Supreme, of the devotees of the Lord. So that is the reciprocity of relationship. It is not so when one is actually involved in those connections, the rasas. So there is this dasya, sakya, vatsalya and madhurya. And the dasya rasa, of course, one is understanding that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Person and one is rendering service. But when one goes into the sakya, vatsalya and madhurya, this thinking that the Lord is Supreme Person is taken away. And therefore that intimacy of relationship happens with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So for example, in the Sakya Rasa, the friends, the Gopas of Vrindavan, who are having the pastimes with Krishna, they are playing different games with Krishna, and they do not consider Krishna as a Supreme Person. Because if they consider him as Supreme Person, their bhava will change. It will become a dasya bhava. And they are not in dasya bhava, they are in sakya bhava. So in sakya bhava, they are like equals. And in that, sometimes Krishna will carry them on their back, or sometimes they will carry Krishna on their back. So all these different kinds of games that they play. And that is the spiritual existence, where there is constant bliss in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is what Itihasas and Puranas are wonderfully giving the message. And therefore they are called Panchamam Vedam Ishvara. And they are called the fifth Vedas, the Itihasas and Puranas. And then we have got the Upanishads as well. The different Upanishads are categorized. Upanishad means sitting near the master. Upa is near, Nishad is sitting. So this is again, Upanishads are the condensed version of the Vedas, which is actually giving various messages in order to understand our eternal nature. So the final goal of Puranas, Vedas, Puranas, Itihasas, Upanishads, everything, all the Vedic literatures, the final goal is that Vedesha Sarver Ahameva Vedyam. As Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, among everything in Vedas, Krishna is to be known. This is what Shrama eva hi kevalam dharma swanushrita pumsam vishwakshena kathasvaya notpadyat ratim yadi Shrama eva hi kevalam. It is mentioned in Srimad-Bhagavatam that this is what is the goal. The goal is vishwakshena kathasvaya ratim. So when one develops this attachment to hear about Krishna, that is the goal. Otherwise it is Shrama eva hi kevalam. It is just a hard labor. If by reading all the four Vedas, all the Itihasas, all the Puranas, all the Upanishads, one is not developing attachment to Krishna, then unfortunately it is Shrama eva hi kevalam. And that is what that verse that we were trying to discuss some time back about Jnane Prayase Udapasya. That is what the conclusion of that verse is also. That verse is saying that if one is trying to understand the Lord through logic and through knowledge, Udapasya, it is not possible. Then how do one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Namanta eva. And Namanta being humble. Understanding that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the actual controller. And we, as part and parcels of the Lord, are our role is to understand this and connect with the Lord in that way. Namanta eva jivanti sanmukaritam bhavadiya vartam. So the second line of that verse is saying that when one is in that attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is jivanti sanmukharitam, that one is attached to the Supreme Person and one is talking about the Supreme Person. Bhavadiya vartam sthane sthita shrutigata tanuvan manobhir. So that particular verse is saying that one does not need to give up one's position. Whatever position one is situated in this particular life, one can remain in that position. So, for example, Arjuna, his position was a Kshatriya, and his position was to engage in the Dharma Yuddha whenever it is needed. Always protecting the religiousness, righteousness. That was his role as a Kshatriya. Kshat Trayate. There is a definition about Kshatriya, that means one who liberates another person from getting hurt in a wrong way. So if some irreligious person is trying to hurt a religious person, the role of the Kshatriya is to stop that atrocity from being done. And in the case of the Pandavas, unfortunately they themselves were under that situation. The atrocities were being committed against the Pandavas themselves. What to speak of protecting someone else? That is also that was also needed, really, because the whole adharmic situation created by Duryodhana and the Kauravas was kind of quite a lot there. So there was a real need to bring the situation under control, under the influence of righteousness. So therefore, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. It is mentioned by Krishna himself that whenever there is discrepancy in execution of religious principles, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya. To annihilate those people who are spreading the irreligious activities, abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srujamyaham. The Lord personally comes. And this is the Panchama Veda is, as we said, Krishne Swadhamopagate Dharmagyana Divisaha Kalau Nashta Drishamesha Purana Arko Dunodita. It is mentioned about Bhagavata Purana that this Purana Bhagavata came in as a rising sun when the darkness of Kali Yuga started. And that is called, that is Krishna himself in the form of Srimad-Bhagavatam. So it is, this is what is the transcendental situation in relationship with Krishna. Atah Shri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahyam indriyai sevon mukhe hi jivadav swayam eva swarati yada. So anything related to the Lord, it cannot be known through the blunt material senses. One might think that the Vedas, the Itihasas, the Puranas, the Itihasa and Purana are called the Panchama Veda here, as we have said, as we have discussed. One might think that this is all mundane, because again it's all set of words only, and any kind of mundane literature is also a set of words. So what is it that is distinguishing the Vedas, Puranas, Itihasas from any kind of mundane scripture? It is, what distinguishes it is that these scriptures are helping us to understand our eternal nature. Aham Brahmasmi. That is the Veda Vakya. Tat Tvamasi. Thou art that. So thou is like we as an eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like in one sense, we are, when we understand that we are the part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we establish that connection, and then we know that we are part of the whole. We are not just like Srila Prabhupada gives the example, like the finger is a part of the body, but the value of the finger comes from being part of the body. If the finger is cut off from the body, this finger does not have any value. Exactly in the same way, unfortunately, when under the influence of ignorance, we think that this material existence is the only existence, then it is like someone who under the influence of ignorance has been cut off from the eternal link that is already always established. So it is, once we get that, this is what is Tesham Evanu Kampartham Aham Jnanajam Tama Nashyami Atma Bhavasto Jnana Deepena Bhasvata. So this is what Atma Bhava. Atma Jnana Vihina Mudha Tepachanti Narakani Goda. It is mentioned in this Bhaja Govinda by Srila Shankaracharya that if one does not have that Atma Jnana, this knowledge of as an eternal part and parcel of Krishna, unfortunately one is in a hellish condition of life. And so therefore this Itihasa Puranani Panchamam Vedamishvara Sarvebhya eva Vaktrebhya Sasruje Sarva Darshana. So this particular verse where it is saying that then he created the fifth Veda, the Puranas and the histories, from all his mouths, since he could see all the past, present and future. When we are discussing this verse, we are understanding the significance of the Puranas and Itihasa, because it is through the medium of stories that one gets connected, and that connection helps one to always remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the goal of the whole Vedas, the four Vedas, the innumerable Upanishads, the Itihasas, the Puranas, The final goal is that yena tena prakarena mana krishne niveshayet sarve vidhi nishedasyo etayoreva kinkara. Tasmat kenapi upayena mana krishne niveshayet. So some way or the other fix the mind on Krishna. So with the prayer that we can always remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the medium of these wonderful scriptures, Srimad-Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and all the wonderful literatures from the Goswamis of Vrindavan. Thank you very much for listening. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Utale Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Samaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarane Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu Krishne Matirastu Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.